Go Long, Chapter 13, Third and Long. Stevie and Susan Carroll sat and watched Eddie leave the gym, his sneakers squeaking quietly against the floor. I feel bad for him, Stevie said. This isn't his fault, but he's going to have to pay the price anyway. Susan Carroll stood up. You're right. He's trapped in a way, a little bit like Chip Graber was back at the Final Floor. He's not being blackmailed, but no matter what he does, it's going to be wrong. He can become a pariah and guarantee his team won't win the Super Bowl, or he can help his team win a tainted victory and live with the guilt. What do you think we should do? I think we need to find a way to report the story without making Eddie the fall guy. How? I haven't got a clue, Stevie. I haven't a clue. Come on, I have to go change before the interview sessions. They found a cab, and Stevie dropped Susan Carroll at the Canterbury, and then went straight on to the Dome. It was 8:30 when he walked into the CBS compound, which was already humming with life. He found Andy Kaplan reading the Indianapolis Star. Hey, your piece got rave reviews last night. Our piece, Stevie corrected. I didn't stay up to watch it, to tell you the truth. I can get you a tape, Kaplan said. I hope your parents saw it. Stevie had called his parents to tell them he was going to have a story on the CBS late night show. They had planned to tape it since the show didn't come on until after Letterman. I saw your Bisciotti story this morning, Kaplan continued. Good stuff. I already made a call to see if he'd come on camera and got a flat no. He doesn't like to do TV, apparently. Yeah, he told me that too. He's very friendly, but he hates the spotlight. Unlike Don Meeker, who can't seem to stay out of it. Stevie nodded. What if we did something on Kyle Baller today? Kaplan looked baffled. The Ravens' backup quarterback? Why? For one thing, he's a good talker. I've seen him. For another, he's had to come in a couple times this year when McNair's been hurt and he's played well. Who knows? It could happen again on Sunday. Plus, how many guys who were starting quarterback as rookies in the NFL had to deal with becoming a backup? It's a good story, I think. Sold, Kaplan said. I'll call Kevin Byrne and have it set up. Stevie was proud of himself. He had come up with an idea, a good one, he thought, without Bobby Kelleher. Plus, he could probably write Kyle Boller for the Herald, too. The old kill two birds with one stone trick. While Kaplan went off to make arrangements for the morning, Stevie went through the buffet line, grabbing some French toast and bacon. He sat down at an empty table and thought about what Susan Carroll had sent back into the IUPUI gym. How could they possibly find a way to break the story without forcing Brennan out to his teammates? The lab people would know the results, but what lab was it? Had Meeker really paid them off? Even if they found the lab, could he and Susan Carroll really persuade someone to talk to them? No, they held the whole team here. The doctor, he said aloud. They certainly couldn't use the information he had given Susan Carroll as source material, but what was to stop them from making him think they could? He pulled out his cell phone and called Susan Carroll. Where are you? He asked. In the car, on the way over to the Dome. We need to talk as soon as the morning session is over. I have an idea. She sighed. Why don't we meet in your room again? Who knows how long it will take Jamie to read his lines right. Okay, I'll finish my CBS stuff, then go back to my room and write while I'm waiting for you. Deal. She paused. Stevie? Yes. Am I going to like this idea? He smiled. Probably not, but it might work. The morning went quickly. 3 days in, and Stevie felt like an old hand at the pre-Super Bowl coverage. Of course, his job was a lot easier than most, since people were hand-delivered to him to talk because of either Kelleher or CBS. There wasn't a lot of demand for Kyle Boller during the Ravens' session on the field, so they were able to get him one-on-one before the end of the time period. Boller was everything Stevie had hoped he would be, friendly and honest. He said if he were running the Ravens, he would have traded to get Steve McNair, too. He had learned a lot of football from McNair. But, yes, he hated watching from the sidelines. I'm a football player, he said, not a football watcher. Stevie got all he needed for both CBS and the Herald from Kyle Boller. Then he and the crew went off to pick up a couple of quotes from Steve McNair and Coach Brian Billick. Kelleher was pleased that Stevie had come up with his own idea. Better than what I had in mind for you. Pretty soon you aren't going to need me for anything. he said. Which is good. Which is a good thing because Tamara and I will be tied up in writers' meetings and doing radio all day. That's fine, Stevie said. Susan Carroll is free, so we'll hang out. So you two are okay again? Oh, yeah, just like old times. It was 1 o'clock by the time Susan Carroll knocked on Stevie's door. Since the Ravens had gone first, he had been back in the room by 11 and was winding up his Herald story when she arrived. Perfect timing, he said. I'm starved. Let's order room service. She agreed, flopping down in a chair and looking frazzled and tired. Man, this is hard, she said. I'm working with a producer I can't stand, and a partner who has no clue. She looked at him. I can't tell you how much I miss you on that show. Thanks, he said, but we got more important things to worry about. True, she said. Call in the food order, then tell me your plan. When he had, she said, So you want me to call Dr. Snow and tell him I want to meet with him? Right. Tell him you need to discuss what he told you the other night. If he claims not to remember, remind him. What if he just says no? He won't talk to me anymore. You tell him you're prepared to go on air with the story and name him as the source. But I can't possibly do that. I know that, but he might not know that. At the very least, he won't be able to take the risk. He'll agree to meet with you. I guarantee it. I don't want to spend any time alone with that guy. You won't. I'll go with you. Not only will you not be alone, but we can tell him that there are two of us prepared to go with the story. Bluff him? Okay, but what then? What are we really hoping for? We tell him if he puts us in touch with the right people, the lab guys, other people in the organization who must know, we'll protect him as a source. If not, she nodded. It might work, she said. Move over so I can use the phone. Stevie was quite proud of the fact that for once he was the one who had come up with an idea. Susan Carroll had kept the card that Dr. Snow had given her at the party, which had his cell number on it. Snow must have picked up on the first ring because an instant after she had finished dialing, Stevie heard her say, Dr. Snow? Hi, it's Susan Carroll Anderson. She paused, clearly waiting to see if he remembered her. Right, at the party on Tuesday. She rolled her eyes as he responded, No, not quite 6 feet tall. The reason I'm calling is that I think you and I should talk. Her face turned red at his response. No, not over drinks. I'm 14 years old. I can't drink for 7 more years. I understand. People get confused because I'm tall. We do need to talk, though, about what you told me the other night. She listened for a moment. If you'd like, I'll refresh your memory. It was about drug testing and the Dream's offensive line. Stevie thought he heard shouting coming in from the other line of the phone. No, you never actually said anything about off the record, Susan Carroll finally said. In fact, what you said was, I'll give you a scoop, gorgeous. More shouting. No, I haven't spoken to anyone about it, except my friend Steve Thomas, who is here working for the Washington Herald and CBS. Now Stevie could actually hear Snow's words. CBS? CBS knows about this? Are you out of your mind? Look, I was drunk. I didn't know what I was talking about. Susan Carroll broke in. I know you were drunk, Doctor, but I'm pretty sure you knew exactly what you were talking about. I don't want to embarrass you. That's why we need to talk. Susan Carroll waited. Stevie heard nothing coming from the other end of the phone. Well, then let's find some sort of neutral spot where no one will see us. She listened for a moment. Okay, then. 7 o'clock. Spell that for me? She began writing on a phone notepad that was sitting on the night table. All right. Steve and I will meet you there at 7. She hung up. And the team is staying at a hotel out in the suburbs. Apparently, there's a YMCA right just across the street from where some of the players have been going to work in the weight room in the mornings. He wants to meet us there at 7 tonight. Where is it? She looked at the notepad. Greenbrier, wherever that is. Look, I have access to a car with a driver. He'll know the area. Why don't you just meet me at the Canterbury at 6:30 so we can go from there? I'm taping the rest of the show at 4 o'clock. Even with Jamie's screw-ups, we'll be done with plenty of time. The driver won't ask questions? No. What does he care if I want to go to some YMCA? He nodded. So you don't want me to come over at 6 so we can have a drink first? For a split second, she didn't get it. Then she started laughing. He said he thought I was at least 22. Even if I was 22, he's like 50 or 60 something. What was he thinking? I don't even want to know, Stevie said. Stevie walked into the Canterbury lobby just before 6:30. It was small, but had plush carpeting and leather chairs and a long couch in front of a fireplace. The walls were lined with bookshelves. A bellman was standing just inside the door and said, "Good evening, sir. Are you a guest in the hotel?" "No," Steve said, "but I'm meeting a guest here in a few minutes." He wondered if the bellman would give him a hard time. "Welcome," he said. "There are hot drinks over next to the fireplace if you'd like to help yourself while you are waiting." "Oh, thank you," he said. Hot chocolate sounded good. He was just about to sit on the couch, with his hand wrapped around a mug, when Susan Carroll came off the elevator. She had shed her TV clothes and was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a dark blue sweater. Her overcoat was on her arm. "Ready?" she said. Stevie took a sip of the hot chocolate. It was very good. "Can I maybe sit here for a minute and drink this?" he said. "The fire feels great." She shook her head. "No time. Maybe when we come back. The car should be outside." So Stevie set down his mug and followed her outside, where it started to snow again. Several black sedans were waiting, and Susan Carroll walked to the first one in line. As she did, a man jumped out of the driver's seat and came around to open the door. Good evening, Miss Anderson," he said. "I've got directions to the YMCA where you need to go." "Thanks, Dave," she said. "This is my friend, Steve Thomas." Dave nodded at Stevie and put out a hand. "Nice to meet you," he said. "Miss Anderson, it will take us about 25 minutes in traffic to get there." "Great," she said. They piled into the back seat. "Have you thought of a strategy when we get there?" Stevie asked. "Yes," she said quietly, nodding in Dave's direction in the front seat. "I think I know what to do." They rode in silence through the streets of Indianapolis. It was snowing harder and traffic was crawling. Stevie didn't mind. He wasn't exactly looking forward to meeting Dr. Snow. Aptly named, he thought, given the weather. They pulled up in front of a modern-looking, low-slung building about 7 minutes after 7. "How long do you think you'll be, Miss Anderson?" Dave asked as he opened the door for them, holding an umbrella over Susan Carroll. "I'm not exactly sure," she said, "but probably not more than half an hour." "I'll just wait here, then," he said. "Why don't you take my umbrella?" "That's okay," she said. "We only have to walk a few feet to get inside." Dave walked those few feet to the front door, holding the umbrella over her head. Stevie trailed, saying nothing. When they were inside, he couldn't resist. "Nice to be a TV star, I guess." "Shut up, Stevie," she said firmly, and, he had to admit, not without justification. There was no sign of anyone in the lobby except for a smiling woman with gray hair at the check-in desk. May I help you?" she asked, when Stevie and Susan Carroll approached. "We're supposed to meet someone here," Susan Carroll said. "He's about Dr. Snow," she said, breaking in. "Are you the teenagers meeting Dr. Snow?" "Why, yes, we are," Susan Carroll said, surprised. "He told me to look for you," she said. "If you walk down this hall to the right, the third door on your right is the conference room. He's waiting for you there." "Thanks," Susan Carroll said. They found the conference room, and Susan Carroll knocked softly, then pushed the door open. A man with graying hair and a mustache was standing across the room, looking out the window as they walked in. "You were late," he said in a tone that made it clear there would be no small talk during this meeting. "Sorry," Susan Carroll said. Traffic from downtown in the snow was slow. Snow didn't seem to care one way or the other about why they were late. "Let's get this over with," he said. "I've got a lot to do." Susan Carroll nodded at Stevie. "This is Steve Thomas." "Yeah," Snow said. "The kid from CBS." "And the Washington Herald," Stevie said, knowing Snow couldn't care less. Snow sat down at a conference table in the middle of the room. Stevie and Susan Carroll sat across from him. "Tell me exactly what you expect to get from me here so we can move this along." "You know, It's funny, Dr. Snow. The other night, you weren't in nearly so much of a rush to get away from me, Susan Carroll said, flashing her smile for just a moment. The other night, I thought you were in your 20s and you were drinking, and I'd been drinking, he said. Now I know you're 14, I'm cold sober, and you're trying to blackmail me. What would you like me to do? Offer you some candy? Look, before Susan Carroll could say anything, Stevie jumped in. Look, buddy, don't turn all sanctimonious, he said, surprising himself with the use of a big word under pressure. You got drunk and ran your mouth trying to impress someone who, even if she was in your 20s, would still have been young enough to be your daughter. You're a part of a big-time cover-up right now, and the only way you can get out of it is to go on the record and tell the truth. Snow stared at him for a moment. Just who do you think you are, kid? Edward R. Murrow? Stevie knew who Edward R. Murrow was from the movie Good Night and Good Luck. He was the CBS News anchor in the 1950s who had taken on the communist-hunting Senator Joe McCarthy and exposed him as a fraud. Actually, he's Woodward, and I'm Bernstein, Susan Carroll said. But it doesn't really matter who we are. What matters is we know what's going on and we want your cooperation. So what are you proposing I do? Snow said. Go on the record, get myself fired, and turn myself into a pariah throughout the entire NFL? Or a hero, Susan Carroll said. He shook his head. It won't work that way. Whistleblowers don't become heroes until they're dead and someone makes a movie about them. You don't have to go on the record, Susan Carroll said. Get us documentation of the drug tests. It must exist, right? We'll never say where we got it. Snow looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. I'd be breaking the law, giving you medical records. Aren't you breaking the law, knowing evidence of illegal drug use is being covered up? No, Snow said. Just NFL rules. He smiled weakly. Get us the documents, Susan Carroll said. You aren't the only one with access to them. People can guess all they want where we got them, but we won't tell. Plus, we already have another source. You won't be our only source. That seemed to surprise Snow. Another source, he said. Who? Susan Carroll gave him the real version of the smile. You wouldn't want us to tell you that, would you? If we did, how could you believe we're going to protect you? He leaned back in his chair. I don't think you're capable of pulling the story off without me. And if you want to scream and yell when the game's over, feel free. He paused, as if thinking over his decision. Susan Carroll leaned forward. You know what, Doctor? You're right, she said. We can probably never prove the cover-up. But the drug tests will come out after the game. You know that. And when I go on TV and tell people exactly what I knew about how I knew about them before the game, how will that look for you? I checked the media guide. You're married with 3 children, aren't you? The snarl that Snow had worn throughout most of the meeting faded. You would do that? Not if you help us. I need time to think about this, he said. Take all the time you want, Susan Carroll said. But we tape our show tomorrow at noon. If you get me the documentation, I'll run with that, and there will no need to name you at all. If not, oh, damn, he stalled. Give me your cell number. I'll call you in the morning. Susan Carroll wrote her cell number down and passed it to him. You better call early, she said. Okay, he said. I get your message. I would have to get someone in my office in Los Angeles up early to fax them to me. Do what you have to do, Doctor, Stevie said. His job as the tough guy made easy now by Susan Carroll's complete cornering of Snow. Yeah, he said, standing up and walking to the door. He turned to Susan Carroll. 14? He said, you're really 14? Would you like to see my library card? Susan Carroll asked. Snow didn't answer. He yanked the door open and walked out. Susan Carroll looked at Stevie. I thought that went well. Didn't you? She said. He shook his head and laughed. You know what? He said. You were amazing. Maybe you should show me your library card. Fine, she said, but it doesn't have my birthday on it.